Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for watching, and welcome to day 7, Wednesday. So today we're going to be looking at Jairus' daughter and a woman with chronic bleeding, and this is told to us by Luke in chapters 8, verses 40 to 56. A large crowd was waiting for Jesus. A man named Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, came and fell down in front of his feet. He pleaded with him to come to his house, because he had his only daughter, 12-year-old, was dying. So they set off, and the crowd pressed close in around him. There was a woman who had had an internal hemorrhage for 12 years. She had spent all she had on doctors, but had not been able to find the cure from anyone. She came up behind Jesus and touched the hem of his robe. Immediately her flow of blood dried up. "Who touched me?" said Jesus. Everybody denied it. "Master," said Peter, "the crowds are crushing in on you and pressing on you." "Somebody touched me," said Jesus. "Power went out from me, and I knew it." When the woman saw that she couldn't remain hidden, she came up trembling and fell down in front of him. She told him in front of everyone why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. "Daughter," said Jesus, "your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Shalom." While he was still speaking, someone arrived from the synagogue's ruler house. "Your daughter's dead," he said. "Don't bother the teacher any longer." "Don't be afraid," said Jesus when he heard it. "Just believe, and she will be rescued." When they got to the house, he didn't let anyone come in with them except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Everyone was wheeling and weeping. Everyone was weeping and wailing for her. "Don't cry," said Jesus. "She isn't dead. She's asleep." They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But he took her by the hand. "Get up, child," he called. Her spirit returned, and she got up at once. He told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astounded, but he told them to tell nobody what had happened. We don't know for sure that Luke was a doctor, though there are several things in his work that make it likely, as well as Paul's mention of him as Luke, the beloved doctor, in Colossians chapter 4, verse 14. But if he was, there must have been a wry smile on his face when he wrote verse 43. Perhaps he knew of patients like that, who would spend everything they had on medical attention, and it still didn't make any difference. In a world without modern medicine, and also without any form of state-funded medical aid or private insurance scheme, good health was a precious but fragile commodity. If you didn't have it, you might easily find that sickness and poverty followed each other in a downward spiral from which no return was possible. Luke has followed Mark in fitting the story of the woman and her 12-year-old ailment inside the story of Jairus' 12-year-old daughter. The two parts of the story are joined in several ways. Two particularly in Jesus' command to Jairus to have faith, which comes immediately after he has told the woman that her faith has brought her salvation. If Jairus' faith was to help in the healing of his daughter, then the faith was itself helped by seeing Jesus declare that power had gone from him even before he knew he had been healed. Who had been healed? The phrase itself is quite striking and says a lot about what it was like for Jesus to be instrumental in so much healing. If touching Jesus could have that effect, who knew what might happen if Jesus himself came and touched a dead little girl? Of course, touching was itself very important in both cases. In the world before modern hygiene, soap as we know it wasn't invented until the Middle Ages, and of course many things we take for granted today, such as running water and proper drains, were barely thought of then. Purity taboos were vital, simply in maintaining public health. The Jewish scriptures and subsequent traditions had confided and elaborated them into almost an art form, and two of the most obvious sources of pollution were corpses and women with internal bleeding. In other words, a first century reader coming upon this double story would know very well that Jesus was apparently incurring double pollution. In the first case, he couldn't help it. The woman came and touched him without his knowing either that she was doing it or what she was suffering from, but officially he had become unclean nonetheless. That is partly why the woman hoped to remain hidden and why she was shy about coming forward, and then crushingly embarrassed when eventually she had to. In the second case, though, Jesus deliberately went and touched a dead body. In both cases, the woman and the girl that we find further signs of Luke's care about and interest in the stories of the women. As in well known, he highlights their role more than other Gospels. But in both, as well, we also find foreshadowings of what is to come in Jesus' story. Luke has been patiently pointing out, through one story after another, who Jesus really is. He is also at the same time opening the way for a central explanation of what Jesus has come to achieve. When Luke tells of Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem and his arrest and death, his main theme is of how Jesus, innocent of anything that would condemn him to crucifixion, takes the place of the guilty, those who had courted that fate all along. Already in those incidents we see the pattern emerging. Jesus shares the pollution of sickness and death, but the power of his own love, and it is love above all that shines through in these stories, turns that pollution into wholeness and hope. This is a message that Luke would like to repeat to us today in whatever problem or suffering that we face. The presence of Jesus, getting his hands dirty with the problems of the world, is what we need, and what in the gospel we are promised. As we live inside Luke's developing story, we find Jesus quietly coming alongside us in our own muddle and fear. He welcomes our trembling touch and responds with that central biblical command: don't be afraid. For reflection, in what ways does Luke's portrayal of Jesus being touched by the woman and touching the dead girl challenge social and religious norms of purity and pollution in the first century? Well, I think it was clear he wasn't there to please everybody. He was there to do exactly what God had sent him to do, and was to make it as clear as possible that God, Jesus, is our Saviour. He has the power to heal. And in the example of the woman who just touched the hem of his robe, has the power to heal with pure faith. And as it says somewhere else in the Bible, our faith can move mountains. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's saying that we can literally move a mountain, but in terms of the magnitude of the things that we're praying for, that if we have genuine faith and not a kind of bartering system with God, then these things, if it is his will in our life, can be done. And reflecting on Luke's interest in stories of women and in Jesus' willingness to engage with those considered unclean or marginalised, what does this tell you about Jesus' mission? It tells me one thing, that it's for everyone, whether you're a societal outcast or in whatever way, whether it be unclean or the amount of things that people in a way outcast each other for these days, across cultures, across nations, across the sexes, class. Jesus is basically saying, I don't care who you are, where you're from, how rich or poor you are, I am here for the poor in heart, for those who need the healing of my word and my love and what I did for you on the cross, which is what this period of time is all about, is reflecting on what Jesus did for us on that cross. Have a nice day, guys.